Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Infinite Warfare In Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Foregrip attachment. The gameplay you're seeing right now is me using the RPR Evo, which I keep wanting to call the Ripper, but that's a variant with the Foregrip attachment. I actually got this gameplay before testing out the Foregrip, and I just assumed that it would work great on such a high fire rate weapon, but unfortunately there were several surprises in store for me today with the Foregrip. It did not function even remotely as expected, and I'm having something of a difficult time pinning it down. I will let you know that official weapon and attachment stats are not ready yet, so when those do come out, I'll let you know, but as of now, I'm going to be taking the Foregrip off of most of my weapons. So let's skip over to the scientific method part of this testing where I shoot the walls a lot, and those are just basic reflections bouncing off. This is the Volk Energy Assault Rifle. If you're worried about the reflections, don't. It's a pretty common feature, and what I noticed when I was shooting is that the patterns between the left and the right were astonishingly different. So I decided, you know what, I probably need a third sample here for accuracy's sake, just to kind of keep things on track, right? So we go ahead and repeat with a third sample, and then we can walk up and take a look and compare. I actually swapped out to the other weapon right there, but don't worry, I'm going to show you the results. We're going to get this one. This is the Volk with the Foregrip, and you can see that it feels a little bit better, right? Like that looks better. That's somewhat better, but not tremendously, not amazingly. There's a great deal of variation, unfortunately, in the recoil, which we'll talk about later, and I have a great deal of testing in this episode, a huge giant block of it near the end. So I'm going to shoot again, but I think it's important for you to see the comparison here. Now I've swapped over to the KBR again, but you can see this is the Volk without a foregrip, and this is the Volk with a foregrip. Not very much difference, if at all. I believe the randomness in the recoil is winning. Swapping on over, you can take a look at the KBR 32, one of the handful of ballistic assault rifles in the game. And this is one of the weapons where I feel that the foregrip makes a significant difference, which is what's so confusing about it because it seems to vary from weapon to weapon. So this is the regular KBR 32, one of the more popular assault rifles, and I don't worry about that. We're going to show you the comparison here at the end. This is the version with the foregrip, and if you can't tell from just a basic visual inspection, it's already making a significant difference. I'm just lining up my shots appropriately so that hopefully the bullet patches or scatter patterns don't overlap each other, because that's what we're testing here is hit scans and rays, and you'd be looking at a scatter plot essentially of the deflections. So let's go ahead and walk up to it and take a look. This is the KBR 32 without a foregrip. Good bit of recoil. With the foregrip, significantly smaller and significantly reduced. So KBR 32 makes a big difference with the foregrip, whereas the Volk did not. And that doesn't make a ton of sense to me because they're both weapons in the same class and they've got similar amounts of recoil, and I'm not sure why that happened. So I'm not going to narrate 10,000 bits of testing for you because that's very boring. I'm going to cut back to the gameplay and I'm going to go over some stats and results from my testing, and then I'll show you the rest at the end. So one of the things I found is that recoil in Infinite Warfare has a lot of variation or randomness to it. Some Call of Duty games use different formulas or programs to get their recoil. Some of them get very consistent, predictable recoil patterns. Some of them have a great deal of variation. This one has a lot of variation. The recoil is not super predictable from weapon to weapon, at least when it comes to scatter plots. The foregrip seems to have a minor overall effect on most weapons. I can't sit here and tell you that the foregrip is great or good or that I recommend it, but unlike Black Ops 2, I can't also say that it does nothing because that's clearly not true. It just seems relatively minor and not worth it for the most part, and oddly enough, on some of the weapons I tested, it seems to make them worse when you run the foregrip, which doesn't make much sense to me. That may have to do with the extreme amount of randomness in the recoil, making it difficult to test and getting some kind of bad data, but it was just very strange that some of the weapons were worse with the foregrip. And my best guess at this point is that the foregrip is probably tuned on a per weapon basis, which is the cause for the variation in effects, or it may vary somewhat between energy and ballistic weapons, but again, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just a per weapon tuning, which will give wildly different effects. Overall, I wouldn't recommend it on except for maybe a handful of guns like the KBR 32, not even on the RPR Evo, it didn't help that much. So I'm going to be taking it off the majority of my classes. I also don't recommend it on the ERAD or the Mauler. It did help on the Titan a bit, and those are really the only ones that I'd recommend it for you. So I know you have a lot of stuff you want to see about the Foregrip, so we're going to skip to the end where I did all of the tests. You can watch each and every weapon, but first without the Foregrip, then with the Foregrip, and the two images side by side so you can see the comparison and make up your own mind, and hopefully here in a couple of weeks we have some raw stats. Guys, that's all for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.